Hi, this is Kimball Bullington, and this is a video about getting the most from your cause and effect diagrams that you create. I noticed that a lot of people who, when they're first exposed to cause and effect diagrams, are basically, why do I have to put something on this diagram? And I would like to challenge you to think of it in a more positive way. What can I get out of this cause and effect diagram? And so I've created a cause and effect diagram that's really a prompt page for ideas. And I'm going to start in this cause and effect diagram down here in the bottom right. I always create my cause and effect diagrams with, at least my first try, with a similar format. I put people in the lead position up here in the top right, and then processes is like my second most important issue usually. And I trail with measures and environment. And in the middle, often have information. This may be materials, and I have technology, could be machines or equipment down here. These two in the middle are more likely to vary than the others. You're always going to have people. You're always going to have processes. They should always be measured. There is always an environment. So, but in this case, I'm actually going to start down here in the bottom, processes. What are the processes in whatever endeavor you're about, whether your problem is solving a problem or creating desired effect? And as soon as I say that, I think, okay, I really need to define this first, the specific effect. Is it a problem? If so, try to be specific about it. And if it's a desired effect, again, be specific about that. Then we move to processes. So if I've defined, let's just say it's a desired effect. So for me, right now I have a project to finish some research and publish an article about cause and effect diagrams. And so maybe I have a current state process map already. That'd be a good place to populate the processes on this bone, on this segment. Maybe I have a future state, or am going to. That adds maybe more processes from the original current state. Maybe I have a process control map. Process control map not only has the processes in your future state, but says which are the key processes that we need to control the outputs and inputs, and what are our measures there. That's pretty handy. Failure modes and effects analysis, again, points us towards controlling certain processes. And maybe you have a SIPOC diagram, or sometimes called a POCUS diagram, processes, outputs, customers, inputs, and suppliers. So if you have this diagram, it's a list of processes that you have, which could populate this leg of the process map. It also tells you something about inputs and outputs, which we're going to use over here. So this IPO is really the heart of a SIPOC diagram, inputs, outputs, process. That's something we'll measure. So up on the people side, who are the process owners of the particular processes you've identified down here? Who are the customers of this process, and maybe the overall customers as well. You can look at internal customers as well as external customers. The suppliers to those processes, maybe peers who might have some competing or perhaps facilitating effect on your on the outcome of your particular effect. Key stakeholders, management, and so on. All of these are just prompts for who are the people I should be looking at. Let's go ahead and just go straight back. So information, might be looking at demand information, capacity information, organizational assessment, like who we are, who our competitors are, who our suppliers are, who our customers are, costs, and maybe some information about the supply chain. On technology, if this is the category that you'd use, might look at my existing technology in my process and look at current technology. So this might not be what's existing in my process, but is out there. Future processes, and then maybe specifically at competing processes. Why would that be? of interest. So I used to work for a company making bathtubs. We used a molding process where we had sheet molding compound molded in these presses. Our competing technology was primarily what was called a spray and layup gel coat process. Totally different. But we needed to understand that technology in order to understand the costs of our competition. Moving backwards, measures. So if you have KPIs, key performance indicators, they're probably going to have some sort of measures of cost, quality, and time. The time may be delivery or lead time or something like that. If we established a SIPOC early on, then we have inputs, outputs, and processes. There are potential measures for each of those. Over here on the other side, I've got leading and lagging measures, but that really is explained here. So if I had a process, for instance, to lose weight, then I might be measuring and think, well, my measurement is this weight. And that's true. That's an output measure. That's what comes at the end of the whole effort. That's a lagging measure. You don't know it until you're there at the end and say, I want to weigh this much by this time. Well, at that time, you either weigh that or you don't. More helpful measures might be leading measures, which are more like process measures rather than product measures. So in that example of losing weight, for me, inputs are calories. Outputs, I can have leading output measures as well. And output might be calories burned. So this is calorie intake, calorie output. And then process might be some specific, will I, and maybe it's yes or no, maybe I just keep a log of it, finish eating, eat no later than 8 o'clock. And that's just like a check mark. I did or I didn't eat by 8 o'clock in the evening. And I'll just say I'm not going to eat past a certain time. And then I'm finally moving down to environment. There's a tendency for people to environment. They talk about the weather, they talk about the climate, they talk about sustainability issues and recycling and all this. Great. I would put all of that under the category of nature, but we've got a lot more in environment. Environment are factors outside of your process that affect your process, but over which you often have very little control. So economic issues, local wage rates, taxes, tariffs, quotas, and so on are all economic factors. Your competitors' prices, which you have no control over. Sociological factors. So you could think of cultural issues, which might be focused on the culture issues of the day, and we could be talking about race relations. We could be talking about sexual issues, but we could just as easily be talking about worker rights and working conditions and so on. So these are more cultural, and you can even look at sociological issues within an organization. You might be talking about is it more of a fear-based organization, fear-based environment versus motivational? What is the environment, the internal sociological environment? And technological issues. General Motors just announced yesterday, was in the news, that by 2035 they would be making 100% electric vehicles, no internal combustion engines, no hybrids, 100%. That's part of the technological environment. Ford has made a similar proclamation. If you're a car company, automobile manufacturer, or supplier, that's part of your environment. That we're going to be moving and changing from internal combustion engines to electric. Now, you may not believe that, but you believe it, disbelieve it at your peril, because the major car companies believe it and they're acting along those lines. And then finally, space, which has to do with like the physical surroundings of where you are, which can affect your desired output. All of these together. So when I have students that basically hand me back a blank or near blank cause and effect diagram, I think, wow, really? So, but maybe that's because you don't see the questions to ask of your process. If you asked of your process, what are the KPIs or potential KPIs? If you asked of your process, what are the inputs, outputs, and processes? Then if you did that, then you would populate the processes. Once you populated the processes, then I've got customers, suppliers, and process owners, as well as others, and so on. To me, the four on the outside, people, processes, measures, and environment, they should always be heavily populated. And then these two, the information technology, will probably depend on the processes, the specific processes that you've selected. In fact, you may want to change these categories depending on those. Hope this helps, and I hope you find that cause and effect diagrams can be a useful and easy to use tool for you in the future.